Once in a while, I get a letter seeking my advice that's so serious that I'm not sure I should even read it on YouTube. Usually I decline, but in the case of a letter I received just a few days ago, I couldn't stop thinking about the danger that everyone is in and thought I'd better tell the letter writer, who asked me to be as harsh as I needed to be, the urgent truth. So here goes. I'll call this man Mitchell, and this is what he told me. Hi, my story of limerence is long and painful. I'm 37 years old and this has been going on since I was 13 or so. I understand limerence quite well. I've read the literature, the videos, therapists, lifestyle changes, medication. I've been through it all. I'm hoping you've got some perspective for me, harsh or otherwise. All right, I've got the fairy pencil. I'm going to circle things I want to come back to, and let's go through and I'll share with you what's going on in his life. My childhood featured an alcoholic father, an overbearing and nagging mother, and a whole lot of fighting. My parents would often just put me between them. I'd be forced to be the peacekeeper as young as 8 or 9. I remember being terrified of feeling my parents weren't in control, like I was the adult. I learned to become whatever the situation called for. I used to think of myself as a chameleon, able to shift to keep the waters calm. My mantra during the fighting was to tell myself, I'm a rock. I do not feel, as if I did, one of them would use it as fuel. They'd play me off each other constantly, and Dad says, don't tell Mom about the drinking. Mom knows he's been drinking and asked me to confirm. I became what my therapist described as a master compartmentalizer before the age of 10. I have a strong urge to help people. I've always felt that the only way people will accept me is if I'm doing something for them. Fast forward to my 20s. I'm hyper independent. I moved out as soon as possible and I put myself through university, got a dream job, moved to the city, all that stuff I thought would fix me as a kid. I just kept my nose down. I met a girl. She was beautiful, smart, sweet, everything I could have hoped for, and she loved me. I don't think I ever really stopped to think if I ever truly loved her the way she loved me. I felt a combination of guilt, safety, and security with her. She had a few issues, and I showed her how to become independent and strong. We got married and had a child, and things were good. The child turned out to be severely disabled. I knew early on, and exhausted all my resources to try and fix the problem that wasn't really fixable. I was destroyed. I felt it was somehow my fault. I felt like someone kicked me in the chest for a solid year. My child was obsessed with long car rides by the age of 2, and I didn't mind as it gave my wife a break from a challenging situation. That's when it happened. I saw a girl on the side of the road in danger. She was laying down and not moving. I called from the car to see if she needed help. She didn't move. I swooped in like the foolish rescuer I am and got involved, called 911 and performed rescue breathing to reverse her overdose. She was homeless, badly mentally ill, and a drug addict, but I literally saved her life. I looked for her until I found her again. And she remembered me, and she was so sweet. I'll never forget the glimmer. It made me feel things I'd never felt. I've read that limerence is charged by drama, uncertainty, etc. This girl had it all. I'd start seeking her out on my drives. I didn't know why, but she was a magnet for me. I was hooked badly. She pressed every button in me. I didn't stand a chance. She took me to places I'd never dreamed I'd go over the course of the next 3 years. I won't get into specifics, but I've learned to navigate the mental health system, the legal system, the streets, and everything between for her. I'll never forget when I eventually found myself in a crack house, my number painted on the wall. I made a deal with a decent guy that ran this flop house. He wouldn't let anyone exploit her. In exchange, I'd help him with some personal goals. He was really into things I did professionally. I never did the drugs. I used to say she was addicted to drugs, and I was addicted to her. I fought hard. I told my wife early on, and she was incredibly supportive. I'd often get the girl admitted to the hospital for care, partly to give myself a break, and because she needed to. She'd go off the rails after a few days of drug use by this point and become extremely vulnerable. She spent almost all her time calling me and trying to find me. When I changed my number, she just kept going to the places I frequented, asking for me. She overdosed and died eventually. I was devastated, but within a week, I felt a sense of relief like none other. I got very lucky to get out. I still think it was a gift. All right. My marriage was never really the same. I simply did too much damage. There was love, but I think deep down we both knew that splitting up would badly hurt our son, who required massive support, both in daily life and financially. We moved past as best we could. I took the advice that seemed best. I started my own business, set and met lofty goals. Things between my wife and I were just fine. I had largely resigned myself to a life of relative loneliness and servitude. I wanted to do the right thing. Leaving my family at this point to try and seek happiness wasn't something I felt capable of doing. When I was growing up, I learned to be selfish because I had to entirely rely on myself, but leaving the marriage was a line I wouldn't cross. I learned to never go down to that part again. But one day I was in a store and I saw a young girl getting cornered by security. I witnessed them toss her out for some personal hygiene items she was trying to steal. I bought the items and found her outside. She was so nice, hugged me, and told me her name, and it was over before I knew what I had even done. It all came back, and I knew it at that moment. I tried to put it out of my mind, but my son wanted his car rides, and I had a new limerent object. A limerent object, by the way, is the person where you direct limerence. Limerence is an addictive obsession with another person that is so strong, even though it's not possible to be together, it's so strong it just destroys everything else in your life and it destroys your availability for real love. So this would be the right word for this, but this is an extreme case. It's been about 4 months. I've become her entire support system. My wife doesn't know. It was manageable until she started to become limerent for me. I fueled the fire. She has nobody except me. She views me as her boyfriend and has largely reduced her substance use and moved back in with an old relative to try and reclaim her life. She tells me she's falling for me. I wanted her to be using me, but I can't deny that I've injected myself into her life and made myself her limerent object. She doesn't know it, but I know the signs. She's registered for treatment. All she talks about is getting sober so we can be together for real. I know this isn't real. The addiction is strong for me as well. I'm feeling extremely guilty as I know if I pull away now, she's going to be even more doomed. I tried to speed run the limerence. When she wanted things to become physical, I didn't stop it. I told myself if I just go through the stages, I'll be out faster. I'm already starting to feel deterioration. She's still in there, but I'm trying to be very clinical in how I get through this. I never expected it to be reciprocated. I even put myself into a position to be rejected so she'd crush me and I could try to move on. It backfired badly. She's just starting to really ramp up now. I don't know how to get out of this in one piece without someone dying. If I end up actually with her, it'll be the end of me. And if I try to stop now, she will definitely die. I know it sounds like an excuse, but I put myself into a position in her life without thinking of the full consequences of my actions, should they be effective. I don't want to abandon her, but I know I must. I'm the only male figure she's ever had that was positive for her. She's been badly abused by the worst kind of men, and I broke down her walls and forced myself in. It's not much different than the first girl, except this one isn't fully gone yet. She's close, but has hope, and I'm about to smash it to bits, if I can even muster the courage. I don't really know how to live life like this. Even if I get past this one, I'll be back to where I started, except this time I've exhausted my purposeful living ideas. I've got a business that's successful that I'll lose if I leave. My large home is key to my business. Rent is very unaffordable where I live. Everyone will suffer greatly all around. Things are very stable for my son right now, but if I were to leave, it would upend him in the worst way. All right, Mitchell. Okay, I'm going to respond to this. So I would say this is an emergency. This is an emergency situation for you. Let me go through what you told me. So you had this rough past, and I get it. Like basically all the letters I ever receive are from people who had these rough pasts. So I understand. I know it played a role. I don't think we need to dwell on it much. It's not relevant right now. The crisis is you in present time, all right? This thing where it's like, oh, you always felt you could fix people. I'm going to ask you to forget that thought. That sounds like a rationalization. You know, maybe it was your pattern. Who knows? It doesn't matter what your pattern has ever been. It doesn't matter how you got that way, because that information is not useful here to correcting the situation before somebody is terribly hurt. All right. My child was a severely disabled kid. That is so rough, and I'm sorry. And this thing where your wife loves you and she's great, but you're not sure you love her, well, it sounds like you have a bit of avoidance there. Right now, because you have a severely disabled child, trying to have like the ultimate great love in your marriage is a luxury fantasy right now. Most marriages are about practical day-to-day love, and that's what you have. And I'm going to just really say so strongly, do not F it up. Do not F it up. So you have a good marriage. You have somebody who's there with you, and you guys are dealing with the hand of cards you've been dealt, which is a severely disabled kid who needs you. And there it is. So the car rides is what worked. All right, yeah, all right, I get it. Your kid needs car rides, but that is no reason for you to be sniffing around where this obsession you have with broken bird girls is. I'm going to get to the tough love with what you're going to need to do, but those days are over. You can't use your kid as an excuse to be out there doing that. You can't be doing this in front of your kid. You can't be doing this as the father of this kid, and you can't be doing this to your wife, and you can't be doing it to these poor women who are so fragile. So let me get to that. All right. So when you saw this girl not moving on the side of the road, I don't think it was foolish to stop and call 911 and do rescue breathing to reverse the overdose. You know, you did save her life, and that was the right thing to do. Then you found out how vulnerable you are. So I'll tell you something. It's a pattern sometimes for men. And this is, you know, men and women have mostly common symptoms, but here's the thing that happens to men sometimes when they become fathers, is they freak out and they do something extremely drastic. They go through some personal transformation that makes them impossible for their partner to stay with, and everything is ruined. And you are doing that right now. And it's an impulse, it's an immature impulse. It might be trauma driven, but it doesn't matter what causes it. You don't get to do it right now, okay? You just don't get to do this. And so you develop limerence, you can remember the glimmer, you could feel it. I think you have very clear eyes that this is an addiction, and it's sick and it's unhealthy, but there's something I don't think you're seeing very well. Now, I've been dragged down by relationships before, and I understand what's going on here. And these are pretty severe markers of going down, where, you know, you're having to navigate the legal system, mental health system, streets, and then eventually be in a crack house trying to make a deal with the proprietor to trade help for her. So, yeah, okay, I can understand your motives here, but it's you knew for a long time that this was sick for you. This is not a healthy thing. This is not something you and your wife are doing together. It's like your private thing, using your kid as a prop to justify it. So yeah, she was addicted to drugs, you were addicted to her, and there you are. You're an addict. That's what it is. You are an addict. And you say, I fought hard, and you told your wife, and she was incredibly supportive. And I just had to circle that. I'm like, why? Why would she be supportive about you being obsessed with a woman who's a drug addict? I would be very alarmed by something like that. So you didn't tell me much about that. I'm just going to assume that she had some sort of good faith in the beginning. And if she found out what's really going on now, she would not. This would be terrible, absolutely destructive to her. So you'd get the girl admitted to the hospital just to not deal with her. You managed to like cut off contact, block her. She'd look for you. And then when she died, I've had that happen too. I've had a partner die. I've had 2 partners die of drugs, of overdoses. And I was also devastated, and I was also incredibly relieved at the end of it because I wasn't able to get out myself. So I do understand. You were lucky to get out. You know, it's a shame that it had to be that way, but we don't have to link your story with her story. Her story was she was going where she was going, and you got sidetracked, and you got set free to stay with your family and show up for them as they depend on you to do. So your marriage was damaged. And so that's what I don't understand. You say that it was too much damage, but your wife was supportive. So I don't really understand what that is. Is she just codependent and thinks she has to be nice? Is she terrified that you're going to leave and she has to put up with any amount of, we call that crap fitting, when you fit yourself to an unacceptable situation or person? I don't know, but it is unacceptable, whether she knows it or not. And you did the best you could. You moved past it. You started a business. So you did all these outward signs, but there was not healing in yourself. You got an escape from that situation, but you didn't heal. You knew that you couldn't leave the marriage, and I'm glad you didn't. And then you wouldn't go to that part of the town, but then your son wanted the ride, and that's you're bullshitting, right? Like, if you really have to drive your car, you don't have to go there. And with so much at stake, I want you to just like cut the bullshit. Just cut it out. This has nothing to do with your son's need for rides. This is your addiction. So you helped a girl who got busted shoplifting, and then you rescued her. And then next thing you know, now here's where you're going into magical thinking, where you say, I've become her whole support system. I'm the only positive man in her life. So here's why I'm going to give you the tough love. You're a terrible man in her life. You're married. You have a kid. You have an addiction. Addicted love is not real love. You're not going to be with her no matter how this plays out. This is not the real thing. You have something very, very hurt and destructive inside you that must be healed. Everything you do out of this addiction hurts people, including her. You're not. So I just, you asked me to be harsh, and I think this is what you needed me to say. You're not the good guy you imagine yourself to be. You're not saving anybody. You're injecting yourself. You're creating a false dependency on them. And while that's real, that is no excuse to continue another day in this relationship. So maybe you want to call a crisis center and tell them the situation, or call a doctor or therapist or homeless shelter. But I'm going to ask you, Mitchell, please never have contact with her again. And if you want the doctor or the therapist or the social worker or the crisis center to pass this message that you can't have contact again and send her your good wishes, do that. But please do not use anything as an excuse to keep this terrible situation alive. Everything that you do is poison right now. Stop the poison. Stop the contact. You haven't told your wife yet, and I don't know if you should. I'm going to say that you really need to be with a professional helper on this, a therapist, a specialist in sex and love addiction. And also, I'm going to put it out there is a program called Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, also Sex Addicts Anonymous for men. And you need to be in a men's-only program. And I'm going to really lay down the law here and say you should not go to meetings that are mixed gender. You should not be, everybody in a 12-step meeting is a broken bird. So you should not, you need to like dry out, my friend, dry out, and be away from damaged women, and be away from any kind of temptation while you start to get really, really honest with people who care about you and who get it about what's been going on. I think you are in danger as a person, spiritually, but also like this is what really can take people down to the edge of survival. And I'm just going to caution you so strongly, go get help. Go get help. Now, here's the thing. You need to be discerning. You need to simultaneously be the person who's suffering and the person who's looking at the suffering you and making better decisions. Because if you want to, you can find a therapist who will enable you to keep doing this, who will just sit there and talk in circles with you about your feelings about it, rather than to get in there with the moral emergency that this is and really the survival emergency that it is for your family, for your wife and your child, for the woman involved, and for you. So this is an emergency. And so please stay away from any helpers who don't see it as that and who will enable you to keep going. You will always find people who will enable you about this. You can go to a bar and get drunk with some guys and say, my wife, my kid, it's such a burden I have. And you can get people to enable you any time you want to. But you're going to have to be strong and refuse to do that. Do not get enabled. Get with the people who will help you be strong and draw the line on this. So yeah, this dream of like perfect marriage, oh yes, it just hurts. It hurts to know that it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be a perfect child. Your child has a disability. I don't know what it is. I'm guessing it's something that takes a huge amount of care. And this is one of the things that a lot of families of disabled kids struggle with, perhaps with severely autistic kids. There are a lot of conditions that could be like that. And you know what helps them? To be in support groups with other parents who do that. And I know people who do this. They have close fellowship and family friendships with other parents who are going through this and other kids, and they work together to advocate in schools and from their counties to get the care they need. And this is what's happened. Life is not just like we get to drive off and have no problems. Life has problems, and life has beautiful things in it, and the problems and the beautiful things are linked together. And I know that having a disabled kid is a hard thing. I know it's a hard thing, but it's also this incredible opportunity for you as a person to come out of this, I'm going to call it this selfish desire to, have this, to be this like rescuer, to save somebody, to just run away from it all, and to stay and show up and be there for the people whose lives you have committed to honor your commitment to them. And it's one thing when parents get divorced, when the kids are easy and don't need a lot of care, it's still destructive. But where this is right now, where it probably takes one parent home full time, please don't do that. Please stay and give your love and your efforts and your fatherly and husbandly energy to these two people who totally deserve your ongoing commitment and who will benefit tremendously because you can give that to them, and who will suffer horribly if you don't. So with a therapist, decide what your wife needs to know. I'm not going to try to take that on, when I don't really know you or enough about the situation, but I'm going to call out the emergency for what it is. I would let go of this idea that this girl's life depends on you continuing to be there as this fake boyfriend, this tormented soul who's in there ruining his whole life and really lying about his emotional availability for her. I've gone ahead and blown this video by saying bullshit again and again, but it's bullshit, all right? You're not good for her. I like the idea of you contacting a professional who will know what's going on and communicate your farewell to her. But no contact is how we do this. No contact. And if you're ready to take that seriously, go get that professional help. Check in with Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous and get immediately with people who you can tell the truth to, who will help you make strong, good, caring, loving, wise, human, responsible decisions about this. All right? I send you my love. I invite everybody in the comments. Please don't criticize. Please give your support and love to Mitchell, who needs it right now. All right? Now, I always end with a suggestion for a download. And in this one, I'm tempted to give something that's very strict, but what I want to leave you with is hope. I want to leave you with a very deep document that I've created on the signs of healing. I want you to read it, and I want you to look at what it can be like when you have some healing around this stuff and how life can blossom. When you're in an addiction, you think if you don't have the addictive thing, the limerent object, the drug, you think that there's nothing, life is just going to be horrible, everybody's going to die. Here's what's actually in store when you can get free of your addiction and other self-defeating behaviors. You can download my Signs of Healing right there, and I will see you very soon.